Hello and welcome to Hogo Game Day. We had to move inside, had some issues setting up our video, but that's all right. We have Dylan Hutton, Travis Terry, Corey Johnson, Andy Brown, and our special guest, George with head coach Brandon Harner. Thanks for joining us, Coach.
Hey, no problem.
And we got a chilly evening up here. We're sort of a blessing in disguise, I think, to be moved inside.
End up in here. Yeah, I grew my beard out fully expecting to be outside tonight, but we're in here, and I'm happy about that. So.
Yeah, it's pretty warm up in here. Nice press box here at Georgia, especially what we expected. Thanks for having us.
I appreciate you being here.
We wish we could have got up here a little bit sooner, but we're here at an important time. Playoffs here, facing a familiar opponent. How do you feel about playing Rural Retreat? We talked about this a little bit before, but how do you feel about playing Rural Retreat for the second straight week?
Well, anytime you play a rival game, it's going to be tough. And then when you got them in 2 weeks in a row in the playoffs, it's hard to beat a team twice. And you really got to come out and you got to be prepared. You got to be focused. And I think our kids have done that this week. They've practiced extremely hard. It's been very, very physical. We had trouble stopping some of their plays, and I think this week the kids have been really focused on doing that.
And tonight, of course, they do have another. They have a rival in Rural Retreat. The only Hogo matchup still going on.
Yeah, that's true. And you talk about Rural Retreat, they kind of fit the definition of a Jekyll and Hyde team all year. You never really know what Rural Retreat team you're going to get, and you probably watched a lot of film on them this year, especially the last couple games. You probably got Holston and the Northwood game, which is kind of two opposite showcases for Rural Retreat. So when you look back at that, kind of when you prepare for them, do you look more at the film of the game from last week? Do you put a lot of stock in that, knowing they'd probably change a lot about what they did, or do you look at some of the other stuff they've done this year?
The week before we really broke down the Holston and Northwood games, and that's what we really focused on. And then this past Saturday when we met, we really focused on our film, what we could do to get things corrected, because no matter what, they're going to come out here and do pretty much the same things. Any team in high school, if you come out and try to do things that you haven't practiced all year, you're not going to be very good at it. So that's what we focused on. We focused on what they hurt us with, what we needed to do to get better, and that's what we did.
But from a confidence standpoint, this has to be, of course, in George West's favor to have this game. I know it's not a huge home field advantage, but you're playing it on your own turf here. They're not traveling very far up here. So, but the fact that you have this game at home, you have the knowledge in these young players' heads that you were able to win last week. That has to be a plus for your athletes. How do they feel about this as far as your players?
They're confident. I mean, those kids, they knew what happened last week, the mistakes that we made, and how close the game got to be at one point. So, this week they came in ready to roll, because they knew that we're one and done now, and we have to come out here and perform at the highest level every week, or you're done.
And, Coach, to go back and just sort of talk about the season, since we hadn't got to talk to you very much, starting off 0-3, a really tough start. Probably a lot of questions as far as offensively. You were only averaging about 11 points a game first three games. However, that was pretty tough opponents.
Yeah.
What were some things that made this turnaround? I mean, 7 straight's pretty impressive.
Yeah, we played 3 tough opponents. Radford, they did some things that kind of caught us off guard defensively. We hadn't seen them do a whole lot of stunting, and they brought the house every time, and that really messed with my young offensive line. In the Fort Chiswell game, I thought we were going to be fine. We were moving the ball up down the field, and then all of a sudden in the second half, they just kind of figured us out. Of course, we had 2 drives that stalled inside the 5-yard line, and when you do that, that's not going to be good against a good football team. And in Marion's fantastic. We kept them to 14 points. We just didn't get things going, and I think a lot of it happened with the first game was everybody just learning a new system.
That's what I was thinking. The first 3 games, how was that as far as getting your system implemented? And that's sort of the pain of being a new coach coming in somewhere. You've got to sort of deal with the lack of knowledge for your offense.
Yeah, it's very similar to what George Wythe has done in the past with the wing tee. There ain't no doubt about it. But our blocking schemes were somewhat different for how I do things. And it just took a while for the offensive line to learn that. I mean, we had a freshman starting in there at center. Anytime you have that, you're going to have issues. You had Dylan Anderson as a sophomore starting at a tackle. You're going to have problems when you have those young kids in there. And they've grown tremendously, and obviously we've been 7 straight.
Yeah, a big streak going on right now. The defensive line's improved too.
Oh yeah.
As far as the whole defensive unit, only allowed 30 points or more 2 times this year to Radford, and last week to Rural Retreat. So that's what Coach Akers was talking about. Maybe offensively, that game wasn't the most defensively challenged ball game. The defenses didn't really show up. He said, hopefully that you wanted your defense to show up, and he wanted his to show up. So there wasn't very many punts in that game last week.
No, there wasn't. We had them lined up to punt one time, and then we kind of have a coverage bust, and they ran a fake on us and got us. But defensively, what we run with the 4-2-5, it's a lot of multiple factors, and it takes kids a while to learn everything. We do split field coverage, we do man blitzes, zone blitzes. So once they learn their assignments, we're pretty good. But we gotta come out and prove it tonight, because last week, like you said, it wasn't the best showing.
And it was pretty close.
Yes.
I mean, you had the 93 or 97-yard fumble return for a touchdown there early in that game, and ended up winning the game by 13 points. So take that away, and maybe give Rural Retreat the touchdown in that situation. It could be a whole lot closer of a ball game.
Oh yeah,
so.
It was. I mean, they kept it close. At one point it was 35 or 34-12, and maybe our kids just let off the gas a little bit, and they went down and scored, and then we fumbled, and they scored again, and it's a ball game.
You can catch up quick on
yeah.
them, can it? So a big start tonight will hopefully be in store for your Maroons. If you win the toss, are you going to take it, or are you going to defer?
Oh, we're going to defer. We've deferred all year. We like defense first. Get the ball in the second half. I love going in at halftime and making adjustments and being able to come out and score. That's done really well for us. Tazewell, when we played them, they were undefeated. We came out in that second half, made some adjustments, and turned that whole game around.
Yeah, we always try to talk about that to make sure to see, because a lot of coaches have a lot of different philosophy whether to take it depending on the type of ball game. PH last week took the opening kickoff all the way back for a touchdown, so it made me look dumb for telling them to defer.
Yeah.
So and Corey looked like a genius, of course. You got any questions?
No, I'm good. Just kind of wanted to note about the 1-2 punch in the backfield. Phillips and Skeens. Trey Skeens won our Player of the Week 3 times already this year, twice in a row at one point. What's it been like to have Skeens as a first-year coach? It must be kind of a blessing to have a running back with a nose for the end zone like him.
Yeah, those 2 kids, they make you look good. I mean, they do. There's some great coaches out there, but the main thing is you got to have athletes to win your ball games. You got to coach them to get in the right spots, but they got to make the plays. And those 2 kids has made plays.
Absolutely. All right.
And whenever we talk about last week's game was the highest scoring game, or last year, 77 total points. Is that correct?
Between the 2 teams, yeah.
And this year there was 81 combined points last week, so maybe we'll see a little bit of defense tonight.
Maybe.
I like offensive games, though. So
yeah, I understand that, but I'm a defensive guy, so that was driving me crazy.
I'm sure Coach Blankenship was pulling his hair out if he had any, right?
Yeah, he was.
I'll take a shot at him.
He's our defensive line coach, and he does a heck of a job. And he's very demanding. He's a great coach, so he got it fixed this week.
Yeah, he told me he goes back and listens to us every Saturday. Him and Nikki sit down and listen to us. So that's a little shout out for Coach B, even though it was kind of a shot too. But yeah. I know him from his PH days.
Yeah,
so.
Hey, he's a great guy and a great coach.
But yeah, it doesn't get much better than him. He was one of the good ones at PH. Let's go back to last week. Skeens had 115 yards on 14 carries for 4 touchdowns. Pretty impressive. Sounds like some short yardage from some starts, though. It sounds like you had some starts in opponent territory.
We did. Rural Retreat only let us have a couple of big plays. We had to have smash mouth football for a little bit. 3 and 4 yards, and that's perfectly fine. I'm where I come from. We had to have 12, 13 play drives to score. So it's a blessing when you can break out in 1 or 2 plays. But you get down this point in the season, you're going to have to drive the football to win, and that's what we had to do last week. We had to really just 3 and 4 yards, and then eventually we'd break it.
And it only gets tougher from here after this week.
Yep, only gets tougher.
Hopefully we'll see George with either one. We'll have a Hogo team coming out. At least we're going to have one Hogo team moving on. Last week we didn't have any. I guess last question, what are some things to expect tonight? What are some feelings you have for the game? You feeling high scoring, low scoring, or just
yeah. It's hard to tell. If our kids come out and play and do what we've asked them to do, I think we're going to score points, and I'd be disappointed if we didn't have a little bit more of a defensive showing this week. But Rural Retreat's well coached. They might come out with some things we hadn't saw. We have to adjust to it. But I really think that if our kids come out and play, well, we're going to be okay.
All right. Well, thank you, Coach, for joining us here up in the press box. Stay warm down there on the sideline.
Yeah, that's going to be hard.
Yeah, but thank you for joining us, and good luck tonight. And we'll be here to broadcast the ball game here right when it starts. So thanks, Coach. And we're going to go to a quick commercial break. We'll be right back to continue Hogo Game Day.
It's gonna be a good time. It's a small town. Throw down. It's time to tall board up. Let them tailgates down, and then it's on tonight. Right into the morning light. Crank that country up loud. It's a small town throwdown.
The Hogo Game of the Week is provided by Abingdon Equipment, Appalachian Plastics, Big M Farm Service, Carter's Pharmacy, Glade Pharmacy, Political Dogs, Serber & Son. Make sure you watch and listen at HogoGameDay.com.
A big play here. Snaps on the handoff. He breaks loose. He's past the 50, down to about the 35, and he's knocked hard out of bounds by Riley Blevins. So that was a big-time hit by Riley.
Listen to our audio broadcast on your mobile device by downloading the Spreaker app through the Google Play Store for Android devices and on the App Store for iOS devices, and search for the Hoagie Heagie Network.
Come with me now. Go with me now. I'll take you down. Go with me now. I'll show you how.
Welcome back to Hogo Game Day, live from George Wythe High School. It's Dylan Hutton, along with Travis Terry and Corey Johnson. Andy Brown back on the computer with us. Teams are warming up down there on the field. Don't know how warm they're actually going to be able to get, but George Wythe and Rural Retreat set to go here at 7 o'clock. So got Corey with us now. We had a good show last night, our Hogo playoff preview show. Wish you could have made it up, Travis. It was fun.
It sounded like it was a lot of fun. You got a lot of coaches on there. I heard you weren't able to get a hold of Joey Carroll, but the rest of them were in there. And it sounded like everybody was having, they were willing to talk to you and everything, so that's good.
Yeah, it worked out pretty well that first time.
Good.
Yeah, we got to talk to a lot of coaches and give us some insight in the games that they'll be coaching at this week. So, pretty good show.
Yeah,
it worked out pretty well. Very fun time last night. In case you missed it, you can go back and listen to it as well, so make sure you check it out. Let's go recap last week. Players of the week. Travis, you want to do a little note why it's Players of the Week?
Yeah, the panel, they just couldn't handle it. It was too much.
I couldn't. I voted for 2.
You voted for 2. There were a few people that said, I picked this guy, but this guy's really pulling at my heartstrings. So eventually it came down to the 3 Hurricanes here. Sam Wagner, the Wagnasty, 180 yards on 36 carries, a touchdown, and of course he does all the kicking for Marion, so he had 4 extra points. Hunter Leffler, quarterback, 12 of 22 passing, 196 yards and 2 touchdowns. And then kind of a sleeper, he wasn't in the nomination that was sent out, but someone nominated him on the panel, Aaron Garrison.
He snuck up out of nowhere.
He did, yeah, I didn't see it coming. Apparently Riley Blevins went down with an injury early, so Garrison took all the receiver duties into his hands. Literally, it's a good pun there. 11 receptions for 166 yards, 2 touchdowns, and he forced a fumble late that kind of turned the tide for Marion there and helped them go ahead and beat Abingdon, their arch nemesis. So good showing for all 3 of those guys, and that's what's Players of the Week.
Yeah, those are your HogoHiggy.com Players of the Week, so that was pretty interesting there. Now let's go ahead and break down some scores from last week and the battle for the cellar. Yeah. Holston and Chilhowie. It was a pretty interesting ball game. Fireworks.
It was.
Damascus.
And Travis DeBusk picked Chilhowie again.
Yep.
And lost again.
He picked Chilhowie last night, in case you
Travis
missed it.
DeBusk.
Oh. Nice.
They're not even playing.
Not even playing.
And he found a way.
He found a way to sneak them in, though.
Once we got to the J.I. Burton game, he found a way to pick. He worked it around to where Chilhowie beat J.I. Burton.
So they should be the 15 seeds, is what he said.
Right. Yeah, it was because it was Chilhowie beat J.I. Burton, who beat Rycove, who beat Holston.
Yeah, if you just keep,
once Holston beat Northwood, that just set everything on fire.
Yeah. Oh, so anyway, Holston won last week 35-20. It was Holston's biggest win over Chilhowie ever, 15-point win. I got access to a bigger database of scores, so I can go back further now. The previous biggest win for Holston over Chilhowie was back in 1968, so this was pretty groundbreaking for Holston to beat Chilhowie 35-20. The South Fork Flinger, as I've dubbed him, old Seth Thomas, he had a big night. Had 4 total touchdowns, 2 on the ground, 2 through the air. So big night for Seth. And is also Chilhowie's most losses in a season since going 0-9 in 1949.
Where are you digging these sort of things up?
I got resources, man. I got
That's
it.
good.
You're going to have to work on it.
Well, I'm going to have to work on my stats now.
Yep, he's
pulling
found a
them out of
database.
Different places.
The American History Database. Patrick Henry, 42, Northwood 6, a surprising result in Emory, Virginia. PH ended that 4-game losing streak to Northwood. Humphrey had 114 yards, 13 carries, and 4 touchdowns. He probably would have had a whole lot more yards if he wouldn't have had such a short field to start with.
Right, and then they shut him down at the end of the game. You know, Patrick Henry jumped out on top. They took back the opening kickoff, and then from then on, they just kept their foot on the gas. So,
yeah, Alex Davenport took the opening kick back for a touchdown. Zach Wright, 8 of 11 passing, 75 yards and 1 touchdown. Not a spectacular night, but 8 of 11 passing. He was accurate enough to keep the offense balanced.
Right.
For someone who wasn't at that game, you two guys were. Is PH figured it out, or has Northwood figured out what it was?
I'm not sure. I think it's a little combination of both. We've kind of seen Patrick Henry progress as the year's gone on and kind of fix the turnover issues, and then we've seen Northwood with the injuries they've had just kind of regress. And I think the combination of both, losing to Rural Retreat, and I talked to Coach Fry before that game, and he said he felt confident in his team, but last week they had come out flat, and I think we saw the same thing. You know, the kick coverage was bad to start off with, and then a quick 3 and out. They punt back to Patrick Henry. Patrick Henry scores again. It's kind of like what we saw with Patrick Henry Marion. Marion jumped out so quick.
Yeah.
It's just hard to stay motivated to come back in a game like that.
Especially when you're not willing to pass.
Exactly.
Right.
If you're Northwood, you're
just
behind.
So one-dimensional.
But another note on that, you saw PH's creativity on offense. They were very creative, using different formations. You saw Northwood having complete, total lack of creativity.
Right.
Which we'll see if they're going to mix it up tonight. We talked to Coach Fry last night, said that we might see some more passing. But if out of that formation, it makes it kind of tough. So
Kenny Cole's got the ability to throw it, so if they want to do it, they can do it.
I think the issue that you have in something like that is something Coach Horner just said. If you start teaching your kids something now, it's really hard to be able to rely on that, especially in a game situation.
Yeah, at this point, I think Northwood's kind of grasping for straws. It might not hurt to throw a few wrinkles in at least.
Right.
Covington, I mean, we'll get to it in a minute, but they played them last year. They're well aware of what Covington's capable of.
Yeah,
so.
Covington's well aware of what they're capable of, too. George Witt defeated Rural Retreat last week, 47-34. It was a very high-scoring football game. Last year's game combined for 77 points. That's what we were talking about with Coach Harner. This year, 81 points. Highest combined total while playing each other in the Hogo.
And I could look that up. That might be the highest all-time between the two, actually. So a lot more offense than we're used to here in Wythe County, I guess.
Yeah, but both two pretty run-solid teams. Skeens had 115 yards, 14 carries, and 4 touchdowns. Really led this Maroon squad. Got a ton of other weapons, though. We'll hear about them later on tonight. Nolan Ryan from Rural Retreat had 91 yards, 21 carries, 4 touchdowns for the Indians. So he did his part.
And I heard word that Skeens and Nolan Ryan are first cousins. So 8 touchdowns in the family in one night. That's pretty good.
That's pretty impressive.
That's pretty good.
That's pretty neat. Good one there.
Yeah.
He's catching up with you.
I know. I'm going to have to work on this.
He was doing stats before you were. All right, Marion, Abingdon. Marion was down 21-7 at one point in that game and came back. The Big Three performed.
Yeah,
Player of the week.
You hate to say Big Three and rule out Riley Blevins because we know what a crucial part he's been, but he got hurt in that game, so he wasn't able to really showcase a good performance. But
and that was really a rally win, like you said.
It was crazy how that game went. We were giving updates on that game, and it's kind of like, well, it's in the second half. It's 21-7. You know, you can't really count out Marion, but it just didn't look like there was anything going right for them. I know Leffler had the interception early in the game, but out of nowhere we started getting scores in that, you know, touchdown, interception, touchdown. And they came back so quick, and with a second half lead that Abingdon had and the dominance that they showed in the first half, it was a little surprising that Marion came back and won that game. But
yeah, I heard there's apparently a famous stiff arm from Sam Wagner that kind of turned the tide there.
Wow.
And, if there's ever a video of it, I'd like to see it.
Yeah.
I think it trended on Twitter for a while. So
will it go into Hogo lore?
It might actually, yeah.
All right, so now let's do a season recap. We can sort of do a little scan through here on everyone's season. We'll just start at the top here with Chilhowie. Not a very good season for the Warriors.
Not a very good season, and you look at those first 5 games, and they're in all of them. They won one. We saw them play Marion tough. They played Abingdon tough. They played Tazewell tough, and then right around the Northwood game, it was like the wheels fell off, and they just weren't interested in coming out, and even all the way up to the Holston game, a lot of people picked Holston, but you kind of felt Chilhowie had a chance in that one based on what you'd seen earlier, and still it's kind of.
And Chilhowie was in the Northwood game even deep into the second half of that game. They got the second half kickoff, took it all the way to the 30, and we kind of talked about this in the Chilhowie games we did. Seems like when they got into opponent territory, it just seemed like what you said, the wheels kind of fell off, especially down towards the red zone. I'm not sure, you kind of ride the plays that got you there, and then they would kind of change it up and almost go into a different red zone offense. But with the season that Chilhowie had, that's actually the worst season in Chilhowie football history.
Right.
At
1-9.
At
least until 1949. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We can't go back.
We can't go back any further.
Okay. Now, Chilhowie, finished the season well. I mean, really never got started. Got the win against J.I. Burton. You felt like maybe the wheels were turning, and then just weren't able to finish off any drives. I figured that would be the culprit, just not being able to excel in the red zone, finishing off drives. Let's turn to the next schedule. George Wythe season in review. Tough start. Lost 3 straight to open up Brandon Harner's coaching career here at George Wythe, but then have bounced back to win 7 in a row. I think we can sort of credit Radford, Fort Chiswell, and Marion for just being good teams.
Those are good losses. I mean, those 3 teams are, and I think Fort Chiswell too. Are they hosting a playoff game tonight?
They are. They're actually the 5 seed. Radford hosting a playoff game tonight. So all 3 of those teams are hosting West playoff games tonight.
So those are quality losses, and I think if you look at the way Fort Chiswell finished their year and the way George Wythe finished their year, if they had to do that one over again, you might pick George Wythe.
And we could see that next week.
Yeah,
Fort Chiswell plays Auburn tonight at home, and they're kind of going from one in-county rivalry here with Rural Retreat, and could be another.
Yeah, the bracket lines up with them two possibly. Where at least as long as Fort Chiswell wins, we're going to have a Wythe County round 2.
Difference in 1 seed, they would actually be back here at George Wythe next week if both teams were to win.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting. So that, with George Wythe, a strong finish to the season, winning against Floyd County to get their first win. Then they defeated Tazewell, which is a pretty quality win.
And they came back from behind to do that too, and I feel like that at halftime of the Tazewell game is when George Wythe kind
clicked.
Of figured it out. I don't know. Whatever that halftime speech was against Tazewell.
And then they had the bye.
They wrote it out.
Traveled to Saltville. A lot of hype on that game. We did a show from that one. Then they were able to defeat Northwood, and since then, on that Monday night, they had a good night that night. That was actually our most listened to broadcast.
That's true.
We had
900?
We had about 900 listeners
that night
on Monday Night Football.
Right.
So that was pretty special. And then, of course, they went on to beat Chilhowie, Patrick Henry, Holston, and Rural Retreat. And they've got them again here tonight, so we'll be doing that one here in a few minutes. Then we go to Holston. They were in these games early in that shootout with Rye Cove at the start of the season.
They had such an offensive production early in the season, and we kind of saw them just kind of fall off the wagon there mid-season. And then as the games go on, we saw them jump up early on Northwood. They put a quick 6 on the board, eventually losing that game. But then coming up to knock off Rural Retreat, a Rural Retreat team that ends up the 12 seed in the playoffs, losing to George Wythe the next week. But then coming back to finish strong with the win against Chilhowie, 2 out of your last 3. So there's something to grow on there, and that's
especially
a young
with
team
a first-year coach.
First-year coach, and kind of last-minute first-year coach, really. So they kind of righted the ship there at the end, and I think they've got points to grow on for next year.
Yeah, and in each game and their entire season as a whole, they never gave up. In the games or the entire year, there wasn't a game that they didn't. The Marion game was tough for them, but the rest of them, they, like you said, they were in it pretty close to the end. Maybe not Northwood, but they led against Northwood, and obviously the win against Chilhowie at the end. So kudos to Coach Patterson for
one, and that was to Smith County rival Northwood, week 2 in Saltville. Other than that, the Scarlet Hurricanes made it through the season unscathed. We thought maybe they'd have some issues come the end of the year playing the likes of Union and Abingdon, but they made it. I think we realized how good a team they were last week against a team like Abingdon.
Hottest team in the district right now, Marion or George Wythe?
I'd like to see that one again.
I guess if you had to pick by statistic-wise, I think you'd have to go with Marion, knocking off a 3A school like Abingdon last week. But, that Northwood game's been quite controversial this whole year.
It's a bit of an
it's kind of a what-if. So,
if we go back and talk about George Wythe and Marion, that was week 3. Coach Harner's just now getting moved in, technically, and so straight wins, then sort of slipped up there against George Wythe and really just couldn't regain their footing. We can attribute that to the injuries, or we can just say they got beat by better football teams. But Olinger and Doane went down. That definitely made things tough. The one-dimensional offense that they have, it really made them pretty predictable.
Yeah, when an injury can take you from the best start in school history to
one of the worst finishes.
Worst finishes ever, then it's probably some scheming that you could go back and adjust. But, hey, they made the playoffs. They have a chance they're hosting a game against Covington. They have a chance to right the ship here. So we'll see what happens.
Well, like Coach Fry said, they've got Doane back to full health.
Right, and Coach Fry also mentioned that this is a new season for them. When you hit the playoffs, it's everybody's 0-0. So that's the way they've got to look at it. They can't really dwell on how the season ended. I think they at the beginning of the season were better, some of the teams they lost to. But, those teams improved as the year went on, too. So you can't really accredit it all. But, yeah, the injury to Blake Olinger was really detrimental for that team. They live by the run, and obviously they're dying by the run. But with Blake Olinger in there, they're much stronger as a team.
Well, they definitely have talent still on the offensive line.
Absolutely.
With the Dice brothers. But the thing is, can they get some people to get some plays, pick up first downs? Because we're seeing it right now. This defense is vulnerable when this offense isn't able to go out there and pick up first downs and take some time off the clock.
And remember, Blake Olinger was a big defensive player, too, and they're not playing him at all on defense right now. So that hurts on both sides of the ball.
Yeah, that's definitely hurting Northwood. We'll see what they do tonight, though. Patrick Henry's season review. Talk about Jekyll and Hyde. We were talking about Rural Retreat, but I think PH and Rural Retreat could sort of be in the same spot. Patrick Henry with that first loss to Thomas Walker. Zach Wright didn't play in that ball game until they tried to pull him in late and try to get him to throw up a few TDs, but he wasn't able to. Thomas Walker got the upset. But since then, PH has beat pretty much everyone they should have. They did have that slip up against John Battle, but other than that game, at Battle, they beat Twin Springs, beat Rye Cove, beat Rural Retreat, beat Holston, lost to the two best teams in the district, Marion and George Wythe, then took care of business the final 2 weeks against Chilhowie and Northwood. This is a team that knows what they're going after. They're going for a playoff win. And Coach Palmer seemed very confident on the phone last night, heading to Clintwood there to Ralph Cummins Stadium. It's definitely going to be a rocking environment, possibly being the last game. And that's one of the closer things to a college environment in high school football as far as how loud it gets there. It's a very intense place to play football.
Right, yeah. And, this Patrick Henry team, they've grown as the season's gone on. They fixed the turnover issues, and they've gotten so tight as a group. And really, if there's any advantage to that team, it's that they've stayed healthy.
Yeah.
They don't really have any key injuries. We talked to Coach Palmer about that, and we actually talked to him about a key Clintwood injury tonight with Daly. We don't know what his status is.
Dakota Daly, the running back, so we'll have to figure out his status. That's a very pivotal thing there for a team that runs a ball like Clintwood. They've got plenty of weapons, though. They can throw the ball and do a little bit of everything over there, and that's some mountain football right there. That's in your mouth.
Coming into the year, would you have thought PH would be a couple bad bounces away from potentially being 8-2? I mean, no one probably expected Marion had the potential to had the year they did. So that's two good, I would say, seasons that exceeded most expectations. Even if you consider the losses PH did have, they still had a year probably better than most of us thought.
Right, and I would think that Marion last year, I think we all thought that they were just going to run the district. I think this year they did a good job coming in and stamping their label on what they want to be known as in the Hogie. Last year they didn't have that great of a run through it, so
senior heavy team though. We'll see what happens next year for them.
Yeah, and we're glad we've got so many Hogo teams in here this year in the playoffs. We've got a pretty good bit of teams, pretty high seeded teams too. So.
Yeah.
And we got this Hogo matchup here tonight, but the good thing about this game is we're guaranteed a winner.
Yeah.
So
that's good.
Knowing our luck, it'll finish in a tie, but it would be close.
Well, at least we'll finally get our one possession game.
We hadn't got that. Our last team for review, Rural Retreat, started off the season with a loss at Fort Chiswell, then defeated Bland County and a big win against Grayson County, forced 6 turnovers in that ball game.
Yep.
Then they were defeated by Marion pretty badly. Traveling Arrows got a victory, were beaten by PH, but that game was pretty close compared to what the scoreboard showed. We had a pivotal play in that game that could have went either way, that catch by Kent Kestner.
And we finally got a full explanation on that game, on that catch. It actually was a catch, the way that it was explained to me by one of the officiating crews. In high school, you have to complete the catch in college. But in high school, all you have to do is come down in bounds. And the way that Kent Kestner come down was he had 1 foot in bounds and 1 foot out of bounds. And when he got hit by the Rural Retreat player, the ball came out. But in high school, when your foot touches out of bounds, the play is dead. So there is no completing the catch. So when he caught the ball and came down 1 foot in, 1 foot out, that's a completed catch.
Play. Yeah.
And it's... So they got the call right, even though I was the one to criticize them to say that the call was wrong.
They went on to go 2-2 the rest of the way, had a win against Chilhowie, then had a bye. Coming off that bye, they were upset by Holston. Big win for the Cavaliers and Coach Patterson. Then they bounce back the next week. This is a weird 2-week stretch. They bounce back the next week and take down Northwood, costing Northwood a shot at the Hogo title and going ahead. We were able to crown Marion the Hogo champs Week 10, thanks to that slip-up there by the Panthers. But then, of course, last week they faced George Wythe and were defeated by 13 points. So
good outing, though. I mean,
they were a fumble away from probably a totally different ball game.
Yeah, I think you kind of go back to what might have been on this season, though, with the Holston loss. That really hurts to lose to a team like Holston and the season that they had. And, you look at Rural Retreat here as a 12 seed. You got to start to wonder, with another win like that and then a tiebreaker over Northwood, you could be looking at Rural Retreat hosting a home game tonight. So, you kind of go from maybe a home game in the playoffs to having to play your in-county rival 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, that's true.
But I think out of the two coaches we've talked to, I think Coach Akers was more excited about playing George Wythe again.
Absolutely.
I don't know if it's because he's got the fact that they were defeated the first time, maybe a chance to revenge game. If you want to win, you want to win the second one, because this one right here is a season ender.
Yep. We put up 34 points against him. He's got to feel pretty good about their ability to score, maybe not their ability to slow down that running
What I've
attack.
noticed, where was Stone Mullins we got Nolan Ryan's stats for that game, but where was Stone Mullins? They must not have split the carries.
There is actually on my stats, he only played 9 games this season, so he could have been out that game. I'm not sure of an injury, but he only played 9 games this season.
Yeah, it's interesting. They even made a quarterback switch at some point during the year. They went from Trent O'Neill, who we saw at the 7-on-7, and he had a few touchdowns of his own throughout the year. And then suddenly, I can't remember which game it was, but we saw Wyatt Sowers come in and kind of take the reins. And I think you've seen the scoring output go up quite a bit since then, too.
He had a good outing against Patrick Henry. Yeah, that's the first time we've really seen him run the ball this year. So
he had a big 60-yard touchdown run against PH. They're a very diverse offense compared to what you would think with the Veer, but they're gonna run it the way they do, and George Wist's gonna have to be physical and stop it. But with that, we interviewed Coach Akers yesterday. We're gonna play his interview here, so make sure you stay here with us. This is an interview from last night's talk with Rural Retreat head coach Chris Akers. All right, welcome back to the Hogo Playoff Preview Show. And we'd like to welcome Rural Retreat head coach Chris Akers. Thank you for joining us, Coach.
Thanks for having me, guys.
And let's go ahead and cut to it here, playing against George Wythe for the second straight week. Let's go ahead and talk about, this season for you all. You've had both highs and lows. How do you feel about being 5-5 at this point?
It's bittersweet. Obviously, we think that we let some games slip away from us. And then at times I thought we played really well and won some games that we weren't expected to win. So, like you said, we had some highs and lows, but most of that came down to, turnovers. You can't turn the ball over 5 or 6 times a game and expect to beat anybody. So when you do that, you're going to have a hard time winning games. But, all in all, I'm proud of the way we finished up and hoping we can make a run here.
Yeah, you got a real good chance here against a rival. Let's go ahead and turn back, though. Made this interesting stat there a second ago. In the losses, your defense has given up 46 points per game. In the wins, only allowing under 18 points with 17.4. What's the difference in this defense in the wins and the losses?
Well, obviously, the teams that we lost to are very quality football teams, and with Marion and George Wythe and Fort Chisel, they put points on the board against everybody. I think we're getting better defensively. Even though we're giving up, last week we gave up over 40-some points. We're getting better, and I think it's just a learning curve for some of our kids. We talked at the beginning of the year, and we just don't have many kids this year that have ever played before. We had 2 returning starters on defense, so we have a lot of youth, and it takes time to adjust to the speed of the game.
Yeah, congratulations on making the playoffs, Coach. And you're hitting on it. You do have a lot of youth. I mean, how big of a deal is it for this team full of – you got a whole lot of sophomores out there. I mean, how big of a deal is it to make the playoffs and get this experience in the postseason? And I guess that'll better prepare you for next year also.
Yeah, I think it's tremendous. And you look at most of the Hoga-Higgy teams that were successful this year, a lot of them were heavily senior-ridden. And it just makes a difference, especially when those guys have been playing 2 and 3 years as starters or, spend significant time on the field. Practice is one thing, but a game is worth the practices. And it's just that game experience and that game speed that, that you can't practice, you can't keep those kids. So what we don't want to look forward to next year, but, we do have a lot of kids that will be coming back and they've had some experience under their belt. And so hopefully that will help us.
Coach, tomorrow you're facing a George Wythe team that is all too familiar. After playing them last week, what are some of the adjustments that your Indians will have to make to flip the result from last week, and what are some of the keys to getting the victory tomorrow?
Obviously, George Wythe is a tremendous team. They're loaded with talent. They're loaded with speed. They obviously cause us problems. All over the field, offensively and defensively, even in their special teams, they're very sound. So they're just a very sound football team, and we know that, obviously we're going to have to play better defensively to stop them, and we're going to have to get off the field on defense. And offensively, I know Coach Harden will have his guys ready to play against us, so we'll have some adjustments, hopefully, that we can make against them and maybe aid our cause. But they're a tremendous football team. They really are, and we know that we're going to have to play the best that we can, and hopefully we've learned some things that we did wrong. That is the beauty of playing somebody right back to back. There's no better film to watch than the film of you against them. So you get to see your kids in situations and game situations and see how they respond. So obviously we made mistakes that we think are correctable, and I'm sure they feel the same way.
Yeah, let's go. Just one more question here, and we'll let you go. Defensively, this George Wythe team has only allowed 30 points twice this season. Week 1 against Radford and Week 11 last week against your Rural Retreat Indians. So what were some things offensively that you were able to take advantage of with that running back duo you have with Stone Mullins and Nolan Ryan?
Yeah, we've if you've watched us all year, we've relied on our run game. That's kind of our bread and butter, and Nolan and Stone are tremendous backs in my eyes. I think they give you everything that they got. But some things that go unnoticed with us and nobody talks about is our offensive line. Our offensive line does a tremendous job. They're undersized at some positions, but we really work them hard, and we're really proud of the way that they played Friday night. We think that obviously if we can play that well offensively, tomorrow night, then we'll have a good opportunity to win the football game.
Yeah, are you expecting another high-scoring affair? Do you think these defenses will settle things down?
Who knows? That's why they play the games, and you just never know what to expect. Obviously, I'm sure that Coach Hardner hopes his kids play better defensively, and I hope that we do too. I think there was one punt in the entire game. We didn't punt, and they punted at the end of the game. So, obviously, I'm sure that he's stressed in defense, and obviously we've stressed defense all week. So, hopefully for our sake, there won't be as many points scored by George Wythe, but they're a good football team, and they're going to be hard to contain.
Yeah, both these teams are pretty offensively powerful.
Well, Coach, we want to thank you for taking the time tonight. We know it's a busy day for you, getting ready for that first-round playoff game tomorrow. We wish you the best of luck, and again, just thanks for dialing in with us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you guys for all you do.
Yeah, thank you, Coach.
Thanks, Coach. Good luck.
All right, thanks.
Keep up with all the action in the Hogo.
But Marion's going to take over here on the 10-yard line, right in the red zone. That handoff to Wagner up the middle. There's a lot of Warriors in the backfield. Here comes Wagner around the edge, diving in. Touchdown.
Like us on Facebook, Hogo Game Day. Follow us on Twitter at Hogo Game Day. And check out our very own website, www.hogogameday.com.
Now's gonna be a good time. It's a small town. Throw down. It's time to tall board up. Let them tailgates down, and then it's on tonight. Right in the morning light.
Game Day. Travis Terry, Corey Johnston, Andy Brown. Will Seidel is here. We're getting ready to do our predictions, boys. It's exciting time. Let's go through Travis the Bus predictions real quickly, just in case you missed him last night. Turn us up a little bit, Andy. I can't hear myself. Loud place. Travis the Bus predictions last night. Corey, who did he pick? I don't even remember.
I actually think he picked Rural Retreat in this game. He had Marion, Covington, Patrick Henry, and Rural Retreat.
And Chilhowie.
And, well, yeah, he's picked Chilhowie, too.
So that was Travis the Bus picks. Let's go ahead. It's time for our picks, Travis.
All right, we'll start with Chatham at Marion. Last year's playoff game, Marion faced Chatham's neighborhood rival Appomattox County, lost 50-20, struggled to stop Appomattox's speed. History-wise, they've never played each other. Chatham finished this season 5-5. had a loss to Patrick County, not a very good team, so that was a bit of a surprise. Last week, Marion got that exciting win over Abingdon, and Chatham lost to Appomattox, the team that pounded on Marion last year. They lost to them 63-6.
So it's time for picks. Our forum picks here. Spearslinger, what position's he in our?
I didn't have time to check. I just picked a few out. So
he picks Marion 28, Chatham 7. Corey, you did your pick yesterday, but go ahead and I don't remember your score.
I went big. I think Marion wins this one big here.
Yeah, I've got Marion as well. I think Marion, I said 35-7 or 35-14.
I think I had 41-14 on this one.
So yeah, I think Marion big.
Yeah, I got Marion too. I think I don't really know a lot about Chatham, but just based on the two team schedules. Covington at Northwood. I can actually discuss last year's game because they played one another. Covington won 41-18. Covington led 28-6 at half, so Northwood kind of dug a hole early they couldn't get out of.
Second ever meeting. Last year was the first, so getting sort of familiar with each other after a while.
Yeah, and I struggled to find a best win for James River because they beat a lot of teams that were 2 and 3 wins. But they lost to a lot of good teams. They lost to Perry McClure, went undefeated, Glenver, so pretty decent team. Last week, Northwood blown out by PH. Covington beat a usual perennial playoff power, Bath County. They're 0-10 this year. They beat them 45-14. Forum picks, Cavalier 15. He's one of my favorite posters. He's kind of a funny guy. He has Covington beating Northwood 35-12.
Yep, and I've got it pretty much the same way. I don't think it gets any better this week. I think Northwood's just out of sync offensively. I don't think they get it back. I've got Covington 42-6.
You know, I picked Northwood last night, and I've thought about it all day, and gosh.
Hold on. No, you picked.
I picked Covington.
Then he picked Northwood.
Then I picked Northwood. I scratched it, and I picked Northwood.
Now he's going to scratch it again.
I'm going to scratch it again. I'm going to
triple not so fast on himself.
I'm going back to Covington. The more that I look at the game, I just don't think it's going to happen. I'm going to go with Covington here.
I'm going to go with Covington too. So that's all three of us.
I'm pulling for Northwood. Don't get
I am too.
No, I'd like to see him win.
I'd like to see Northwood get another win.
It would be good for that program, and it'd be good to get them back in with another win here after such a bad finish. It's a postseason, so anything can happen. Jump to the next game. Patrick Henry traveled 71 miles up the road to take on the Green Wave in what could possibly be their last home football game as Clintwood. So very emotional night is going to be in store there, and the Rebels will have to make it through the storm of emotions that's coming from that Clintwood sideline.
Yeah, they've never played each other. They have no history. Clintwood's done pretty well against Hogo teams, though. They grilled Joe Howie a few years ago. They've had some success against these good George Wythe teams that have come through here. Clintwood, though, now that they're in the Cumberland, their wins haven't been as impressive. They've beaten a lot of Cumberland teams, but they've lost to some good teams. When I was looking at their losses, I had to call their 19-13 loss to Union their worst loss, and that's not a bad loss at all. So they've definitely beaten who they're supposed to. Last week, we know PH beat Northwood. Clintwood beat Wise Central 20-14. Probably not the margin of victory you'd expect out of a Clintwood team, but forum picks, Wahoo 7. He's a UVA fan and a Marion fan. I know that much about him. He has Clintwood winning 35-14.
So this will be a first and last meeting between Patrick Henry and Clintwood.
Yeah.
One off.
So one time.
One time deal.
One time. I've got Patrick Henry in this game. Me and Dylan went back and we watched the film on Clintwood, and honestly, if Daly doesn't play tonight, I don't think they have much of a shot at beating Patrick Henry. That's a huge injury.
I think there's vulnerabilities on their side. I've watched them. They're physical. They do a lot of things right, but at the same time, I think they're pretty much reliant on their running back if he's not full strength. I think Patrick Henry, with their offense the way they are, they're so versatile. Offensively, they can do so many things, passing, throwing. They can do whatever they want, set the tone the way they want it. So I've got Patrick Henry winning this game probably in a high score. I've got them winning probably 35-28, PH in a squeaker.
I haven't got to see any Clint Wood film, but all of my memories of watching Clint Wood play is that they're just tough on defense, strong on offense. So it's hard for me to kind of break that mental image of what Clint Wood football is. So I have Clint Wood winning. If they're at home and potentially their last game ever, a lot of heart. Have a win in a close one, low-scoring game.
Just to give you an idea how important Daly is to that team, Daly's ran the ball 125 times this year, 1,149 yards and 18 touchdowns. So he's pretty much the team.
So yeah, Daly is the big.
Daly's the big one.
Yeah, Daly is the big one, but we've got PHPH. Who'd you pick?
I took Clint Wood. I thought the potentially being the last home game there, big home atmosphere. I think that might turn the tide.
It'll be tough.
Game.
It'll be a good game over there in Clintwood. Definitely a cold one over there. It's going to be cold everywhere tonight, though. Let's go ahead and jump to this game. Rural Retreat, George Wythe, second straight week. George Wythe defeated Rural Retreat, like I said, last week 47-34. Met one other time in the playoffs. That was 2 years ago in 2012. And George Wythe won 22-6 after 2 weeks previously beating Rural Retreat 36-6. So
yeah,
a little bit closer,
A little bit closer. So if you go by that formula tonight, we might be in for our one possession game.
And George Wythe leads the series 32-8 all time since 1954 over Rural Retreat. And the pick'em leader, Coach Jay, picks George Wythe 35, Rural Retreat 7. So he has George Wythe winning it in a pretty close fashion. Yeah, 35-27. And we created like sort of a spread for the games this week.
I think
and
we had
them
one at a
4-point favorite.
Yeah,
we had George Wythe at 4 points with the home field advantage. But let's go ahead and do our picks. Go ahead, Corey.
I don't know. I think Rural Retreat can pull this off. I'm gonna go Rural Retreat on this one.
I'm gonna stick to the home crowd here. I'm gonna go George Wythe.
Yeah, I mean it's gonna be tough for either team here, second straight matchup. But the more I've thought about it, I think the team that's more ready would be George Wythe. But the fact that Rural Retreat's played this team 2 weeks straight, got to watch film, they're going to do what they need to do. I'm picking Rural Retreat in an upset 12 seed over 5 seed as well. So I've got Rural Retreat too. So I'm picking the upset here. But either way, we're going to get a Hogo team.
Andy doesn't like it.
Andy doesn't like anything I say, so I get used to it. But with that, we'd like to thank all our sponsors. Our new sponsor, CH Cattle Company, jumping on in the playoffs, and so Big M's Farm Service also sent their sponsorship into the playoffs. Thank them very much. We're going to sign off. We'll be back at 7 o'clock for the live game broadcast. Thanks for tuning in.